Hello, my dear students. Today we are going to critically appreciate the poetry A Plant written by A.K. Ramanujan. It is a very complex poem and it has got layers and layers of meanings. So we'll try to unravel all those meanings. Line by line analysis will be done of the poetry. But before moving on to the poetry, let's have a quick look on who is A.K. Ramanujan. A.K. Ramanujan was a poet, a translator, a folklorist, and a playwright. So he has used his writing skills in all these genres, and obviously he is an Indian writer born in Mysore, but most of his teaching career he taught at the University of Chicago, and he also developed a program for South Asian studies there. And he is a prolific writer who has written in so many languages. He has written in English, in Kannada, in Tamil, and Telugu. And while penning down all his emotions in these languages, obviously he got a lot of critical acclaim, and he was awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award posthumously. Not only Sahitya Akademi Award, but also he was awarded the Padma Shri in 1976. And now, while coming to the poetry that we are going to discuss today, I would also like to point out the themes that he talks about in his poetry, because in this poetry also similar themes will be reflecting. One of such themes is hybridity. Basically, because he was born in India, and although born in India, he spent most of his life teaching in Chicago. So he had known the feeling of a person, what he or she would feel like when he is trapped between the two cultures. At one place, you have your mother country, you have your nation, and on the other hand you have the influence of some Western or European country on you. So how would a person, especially for a English writing or English teaching person, because his mother tongue is specifically different, and the language that he's teaching or learning is the European language, the language of a foreigner. So, how a person feels, especially in those times when English was even more seen as a language of the colonizers and was used as the language for subjugation of people. So, at that time, hybridity is one of the most important and repeated features in his poems, especially another vein which follows along with this is about realistic view of life, the realistic view or the realistic approach towards life, because you will not find him always praising his country or praising the people around, but or not you will find the romantic or exotic view of everything around, the how the poets would certainly at times exaggerate nature or talk about the beauty of nature. But no, he is also talking about the pathos one sees in nature, the realistic view of nature. So when he talks about the poem A River, he is not talking about the beauty of river, but he is talking about the two brutal forces or the true brutal aspects of a river. When the river is a trickle in the sand, how it looks, how clumsy the description is, how the river is not praised in an exalted view, but the river is rebuked or made fun of when it brings flood. So it is not always the generous mother nature who gives, but at times it is the brutal forces of nature also that he talks about. In the same way, he ridicules the religious customs and practices in India. So he has a very realistic approach towards the society on the whole, plus, and that is reflected in his poetry. Plus, somewhere at times you will find he becomes so realistic that you will reach to the level of pessimism in his poems also. So, and that is not only about for Indian culture, but that is also for Western influence on Indian culture. So he is very blunt and very open in his critical approach towards whatever he sees around. He pens it down without any filtration or without any kind of exalting view, giving it an exalting view. Plus, apart from hybridity and identity issues, he also talks about transcultural views. Obviously, we have talked about hybridity, then and his living in both countries. So the Western plus Indian, both of the transcultural views can be reflected or can be seen in his poems. So this particular poem, coming to this particular poem, A Plant, we are talking about this poem which is here he becomes very specific, and here he praises Indian culture, Indian nation, and Indianness, your roots. It is all because ultimately your roots are strong. So he gives the analogy of a plant, he gives the symbolism of a plant, how a plant flourishes and looks green and has got all its beauty because of the root, which is hidden, which is not visible, which is beneath the sand, but is the very essence of the existence of the plant. So why your Indianness, why your culture, why you are somewhat or the other able to establish yourself in this life is all because of your roots, because of your culture. So here he very well demarcates the line that how important your Indianness, your culture, your values, your roots are for you. So that is the basic essence of this poetry, and without much ado, let's start line by line analysis of the poem. So, this is the poem we have in front of us, and we have already discussed all the background. So, straight away, we will start with the poetry. And you see that here the first stanza is of 6 lines, whereas the second stanza is much longer. And you will see this throughout the whole poetry when we will flip to page 2 also, that there is no fixed stanza pattern used here, neither no fixed rhyme scheme. All the lines are of unequal length. So we can say very well that this poetry is written in free verse, which is generally the tendency of many of the contemporary writers. Now, after the technicality, the gist of the poetry. Let's start with the first stanza. A multifoliate restlessness is held by a root's simple inversion, fed by its own mirror image, outlining under the opaque earth its skyward antlered pride. So he's talking about the appearance of a plant. How does a plant look like? A plant which is a rich and healthy plant is a multifoliate. There are multiple leaves on it. So that's why, because of the rich plant, so many leaves and stems there, the author, the poet, is describing it as a multifoliate, multiple leaves on it. And because of multiple leaves, it is restless. But all the physical outward appearance of the plant is the restlessness of the plant because of its beauty and its charm. Sometimes you can compare this to any human being. If someone is physically beautiful and has lot of aura and charm on in his or her personality on the outward face, he or she can be restless. But how is that restlessness held? That restlessness is held by the roots. So, what is important in a plant or in any human being? It's the roots. Your cultural values, your moral values, your heritage, from where you belong, what has made you, is important. So basically you can also refer to roots as the Indianness of Ramanujan that he is talking about, because we have already read that he talks about hybridity and the transcultural ways towards the atmosphere around him, towards which he looks towards the atmosphere around him. So here he is talking about the roots, which is the most important of any plant or of any individual, and the root is the one who holds you strong. It is the symbol inversion. You see, the roots are hidden beneath the opaque earth. You cannot see towards the root. The earth is opaque, it's not transparent, so obviously you will not be able to see the roots. It's not visible outwardly, but it is just the mirror image of the plant. Just like the plant, if the roots are strong, obviously when the roots are deep down below, then only the plant is flourishing in that way. So how many branches and leaves a plant has, or how many flowers a plant has, all its hugeness can be described in a way that even though we are not able to see the roots, it's just a mirror image which is down below the earth, and it is equally strong and healthy, and deep down it is in the same way spread out, just like the stems and branches above. So it's just a mirror image, only we cannot see the mirror image of the root because it is underneath the opaque earth, and it is holding the pride of the plant. The skyward movement, the antlered pride. Antlers are the antlers of any deer. So you see what is important for a deer. The pride of a deer is in its antlers. He can boast about it. So he is comparing the plant to the antlers of any deer, and he's saying that just like the antlers are the pride of a deer, in the same way the antlered pride of a plant is held by the simple inversion of the root, which is not visible, which is not as charismatic as your outward appearance, but because of the roots is only that you are standing out there as a plant and you are visible to the world, whatever. So this is the basic idea of the whole poem as we will move above, and I have told that there are layers and layers of meaning in the poem. So you see only these 6 lines have so many meaning, and we will line by line try to unravel all those. So moving to the next stanza. There are stings for the edge of the braid, on the jagged leaves, rib and vein, picked out in a calcine white on a sea green base, plump fingered stems washed all over in a milk diluted green. So he's talking about the stems and the leaves, how they look. So the leaves are a broad base which has a sea green kind of color, and on the leaves braid like structures are there. On the jagged leaves, the leaf is not very plain, and on that leaf you have a braid like structure, as you can see and observe in any leaf, which is calcine white in color, calcium white color you can say, and it looks like the ribs and vein of any human body. So again he is comparing a plant to a human body, and he is saying that the ribs and veins like structures are made on the leaf of any plant. And just like human beings, plants have also sensitiveness. And how you will come to know about it? You will come to know about it when you break one of the stems. He's saying the stems are like plump finger like structures, which are the stems, all washed all over, means it is all colored in milk diluted light green color. White and green. Milk diluted means a color which has been diluted with the color of milk. The green color has been diluted with the color of milk, so obviously a whitish greenish kind of color, so light green color. And what will happen when you break it? Break it where you please. A glow-lit blood wells up in a turgid convex bead on the wound. So it's just like a wound. If you cut off the stem, as if any human being will bleed, in the same way the stem also sprouts out a drop of liquid. The liquid, obviously the nutrients which is being carried from the roots to the stems. So once you break it, you will see a glow-lit color of swelling up, a turgid, swelled up, and turgid is something which has swollen up, and it is convex in shape. So it is a bead which is bent down, convex in shape. He is describing it all very vividly, and he is saying that is the blood of the plant. Of course, it's the water bodies, the nutrients with the water bodies which are rising up, but he's comparing it to any human being. So if you try to break out the outward physical appearance of anyone, if you cut out a finger, obviously the person will bleed. In the same way, he's talking about the plant. So it is just like a wound which is bleeding. And what will happen? Again, he describes other parts of the plant. There are flowers. The butterfly yellow summer flowers on its head. Too hot for women's hair or honey hive, its stamen bud a carnal red. In the flower cups hollow, insinuating a growing sensual motive. Now he's talking about the flowers. How are the flowers? The flowers are carnal red in color. There is a bud, there is stamen. He's describing all the parts of the plant. So stamen is the plant which holds the bud, the part of the plant which holds the bud. So the bud is carnal red in color. Again, red colored signifies, and carnal also signifies sensuousness. So because you see, flowers are the part of the plant which helps in pollination, and which is basically the fertile plant part of the plant, which has got the seeds. So he's saying that that's why he's comparing it to sensuousness and all. And he's saying that butterfly, yellow colored, summer flowers on its head. So yellow colored butterflies are flowering on the head of the plant, means are attracted towards the plant and are coming and sitting there. They are not sitting on any women's hair or honey hive, but they are coming towards the bud. Why? Because it is the time of pollination. So the stamen birds attract these butterflies, and in the hollow flower cup's hollowness, because when the bud will open up, what will be there? The hollow of the flower will be there, in which the butterflies will sit down, and from there they will carry on the pollen grains to other parts. So he's saying that the butterfly sits there in the hollow of the flower cup, and it grows insinuating, it grows a sensual motive, it enhances a sensual kind of pleasure out of it. So again he is comparing the sensuousness of any human being to the pollination process, or to the fertilization process of a plant. Soon this motive sheds. So what happens after this? That sensual pleasure is for a very limited time, and after that the motive is gone. Means, again he is giving the example in the form of a plant. In the guise of the petal, the petals fall off and the motives are gone, because now those petals will turn into the fruit or some other development that the plant will take place. So the petals have gone, the petals have shed down, and it swells to silk and sepal into caterpillar pods that crack their torn calyx to seed October heat with a rattle of mustard specks, each a black and simple son of the deep dyed garnishness. Now again he is moving from this particular allegory of the plant being turned, or the birds shedding their motives and changing on to something else, bearing fruits and other things. He's also, these bearing fruits of the tree or the plant, he's also comparing it to any caterpillar which is born. How is a caterpillar born? A caterpillar is first in the form of a pupa, and it is first it is in the form of a caterpillar, and then it turns into a pupa, and then the pupa breaks and the caterpillar grows into a beautiful butterfly. So he's saying that on these beautiful stems, on these flowers, not only butterflies are feeding and coming and pollinating, but there are also caterpillars which are there. Now here he is giving a very complex allegory, and it's very we can say tough to understand, but as far as my understanding goes, what I'm trying to comprehend here is that Ramanujan is talking about the people who benefit from you, who are just like parasites, who benefit from you, and you unknowingly give them all the nourishment that you have. Ultimately, they pounce upon you, they devour you, and nothing is left of you. So here, if we try to understand the symbols that Ramanujan is trying to create, first he created the symbol of the roots which are your cultural heritage. Then he created the symbol of the plant, the multifoliate, which is outward appearance. And you are very proud, you are very restless of your outward appearance, and people from other parts of the world, maybe we can see it in this way, that people from European or Western countries try to feed upon your knowledge, your we can say development in the form of a plant, and you are not actually caring about your roots. You are actually unaware basically about the importance of your roots, and in that way the other people, the parasites, are feeding on you. So these caterpillars are basically somewhere or the other the symbol of those parasites which are taking benefit from you, and you are somewhere or the other cursing your own roots, and in fact are having a nice time thinking that the time that you are spending with those caterpillars are more important than praising about your roots. So these are the symbols that he creates, and here he is creating the symbol of the silk and sepal of the caterpillar pods. Caterpillar pods, of course, the pupa of the caterpillar in which the caterpillar lives. And just like the calyx tones up and the bud turns into a flower, calyx is the outer part of the bud, the greenish color of the stamens, the protruding part of the stamens, which we can say curtail the buds inside them. So here he is saying, just as the calyx break and the bud turns into a flower, in the same way the turning of the calyx, in the same way the caterpillar pods, the pupa cracks, and from them comes out the mustard specks. So many caterpillars will come out from it. They have got mustard color specks on it, and they all are we can say yellowish in color. Mustard color means yellowish in color with black specks on it, and they all are coming out breeding in October time, and are deep dyed, very dark in color. They are garnished with these black specks, the deep dark dyed black specks. And this is the total description of the caterpillar, how the caterpillars are developing, and from the pupa they are developing into the butterflies. And in an inch of dry-bone sand, these ugly fistlings, how are caterpillars? They are obviously ugly. They gather their ancestral fantasy flesh and burst their bellies in scorpion travail, precisely timed to throw a rash of caterpillar cacti. So not one, not two, there are multiple caterpillars, and they thrive under the sun, tropic and striped. Tropical sun, obviously he's talking about any place which is a tropical country, and we can say India, because India is a tropical country. And they breed there, they are ugly, and they feed upon the flesh and bellies of the scorpion travail, precisely timed. So there is a time for them. They are feeding on the we can say flesh of the plant, and they are growing not in one or two, but in a host of caterpillar cacti, so many of them, in a rash of caterpillar cacti. And they grow in the naked heat of the southern sky, agitating for the skinny dugs of June. They rant like a mob of tiger moth cubs. Again he is comparing these so many caterpillars to tiger moth cubs. Tiger moths are again another kind of insect, a very short-lived insect, and they are again growing in the month of June, he is saying. So then October, June, he is talking about the various months, but every time there is heat. So obviously he is talking about a country which is all hot, and we can take this as the reference of India. And they rant like a mob of caterpillar moth cubs, limed through treacherous earth's ironic law that holds by root a plant. Now he's calling see here, this is what I was talking about Ramanujan. Ramanujan has been very blunt in taking nature, also taking up subjects from nature. When he talks about river, he is not talking the romantic view of the river, but he is talking about the disastrous way of the river, and the actually grotesque images of the river are also given by him. So here also in this you see that he is talking, or he is referring to earth as treacherous, and is also referring to earth as the ironic law of earth. What is the law of earth? The law of earth is obviously very simple. Whoever is powerful devours the other one. If there is a lion, he will eat the deer. The deer is the prey of the predator, and that is the law of nature. That is the food chain. That is how the earth behaves in itself. The powerful always subdues the weaker one. So he's saying in the same way the plant gave nourishment to all these caterpillars, and these caterpillars have grown into so many of them, and then all of them have become parasites. All are devouring on the plant, not giving any kind of, we can say that no giving back. Actually, there is nothing that they are giving back. They are actually feeding and feeding on it, just devouring all kind of nutrition from it, and leaving the plant nothing but a victim. So that is the ironic law, and that is the law of earth, the treacherous law of earth, which holds the plant by the help of the root. So you see, the root is the most important part, but it is not visible. That is also somewhere or the other the author is saying that it is the treacherous law of nature, because root must be important, it must be visible, we can say, or it must be given importance to, but no one gives importance to the roots. The people give importance to the outward appearance, and the outward appearance of the plant is only visible by the shoot, the stems, the stamens, which are above the earth, not something which is below the earth. So what is hidden is always kept anonymous, and it is never praised for. So there are layers and layers of meaning, as we have seen in this poem. This is the end of it, and so there are layers and layers of meaning, and what we have to understand is the most important meaning is that the root is most important of all. One must not forget its cultural and heritage and its background, from where they come. However, we whitewash ourselves in the suit and boot and the western aura, but what we do is we generally tend to neglect our roots, which should not be done, because these colonizers are nothing but kind of caterpillars who are feeding upon our gray matter, who are feeding upon our emotions and everything, and we are giving them whatever they desire, not knowing the fact, or not giving heed to the fact that we are in some way or the other neglecting our own culture and heritage. So that is the basic outline of this poem, as far as my understanding goes. And here I can say that whatever I have read of Ramanujan, this is the only poem which convinces me that he is more of an Indian, and his bent is more towards the Indianness and Indian culture when compared to his other poems. So you see that Ramanujan is very vocal in this poem, and he, in his very first stanza, only made this very clear in an assertive form that yes, your roots are important, and the people who are feeding on you just for carnal desires, or just for seeking out nutrients from you. So this is a very subtle, you see, image of the colonizers. The colonizers are feeding on the colonized, and the colonized are mimicking them, copying them, and actually relishing copying them, not giving importance to the fact that what they are doing is wrong, not giving importance to the fact that someday they will succumb, they will fall flat towards these caterpillars, the disguised caterpillars, and not giving importance to the roots is the root cause of all this problem. So this is all what Ramanujan is trying to say in this poetry, and I'm sure you all must have understood it, although it is a very complex poem full of emotives and full of symbols, but still I try to do my part, and thank you.